Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF62 7EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You can even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware, including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Rhys Deans of Creative Space Podcast, and my today's guest on this show, on this episode today, is none other than Ben Castle. Ben talks about his career as a musician and also being the son of the legendary entertainer who has been on British television ever since, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and beyond. It's none other than Roy Castle, being the son of Roy Castle, living with him and being his son. We talk many things about his musical career. So much more. I have to give a little heads up here for you guys. Now, the first 20 minutes of the show, you'll probably hear me speaking into a microphone and having a clear microphone sound, and all of a sudden my computer then decided to shut down on me, and I thought I nearly lost all the recording times of the podcast, but luckily it recovered, and I had to go and use my phone, use my Zoom app on my phone. So you will hear a lot of differences between the first part and the second part of the podcast, but I hope it doesn't interfere or not let you enjoy the podcast itself. So without further ado, let's get on to the podcast. It's me and Ben Castle on Creative Space. There we go. But I'm absolutely thrilled because, of course, obviously your father, your last name's Castle, your dad's Roy Castle, and I'm a lover of jazz. Probably not to the same extent as you are, because obviously you do a lot of work in jazz, and there's a few of my other mates who could probably name names at the top of their heads, and I could just be sat there going, I thought I was a big fan.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But it's a thrill because I do want to talk about your dad, obviously, but I also want to talk about you as well, and your love of jazz, being involved with jazz, and being involved with so many people, working with so many people. And I want to start off firstly with, I just want to name names, and I just want to hear a story or one word, a sentence, whatever you want,
Okay.
And if I name them, I just want to see what comes to your mind,
Yes.
and that is Sting.
Sting. Well, that was a huge one for me because the Police were actually possibly my first favorite band. Where I think I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I remember seeing a video of them, and they had walkie-talkies in the video, and I think that's what drew me to them more than the music. But then I was a huge fan of Sting, and I saw him. I think I was about 14. I went to see him on the Nothing Like the Sun album tour, and Branford Marsalis was a huge part of his band, amazing sax player. And so to get the chance to work with Sting was quite amazing. And the band were all heroes of mine, as well as Christian McBride on bass, who's an amazing jazz bass player, and Abe Laboriel Jr., who is just a phenomenal drummer. So I spent most of the time in awe watching him play the drums. He's just got this huge sound. He's been in Paul McCartney's band for decades now, but he was in Sting's band for a little while, and I'm glad it was at the same time that I was doing some shows with him.
George Michael.
George Michael, well, again, what a legend. And I got to play on his final album. It was the album of it was doing his hits, but in an orchestral way. So it was quite unusual because quite often I just go and record for one day with an artist. Quite often with a horn section, it's the last thing to go on somebody's record. But I was part of the whole recording. I think I was mainly playing sax and clarinet, and so yeah, we were there for 8 days, and it was very inspiring. And Phil Ramone was the producer who produced so many huge out. He produced Elton John and George Michael, but going back to his early days, he also recorded some of the John Coltrane and Stan Getz classic records. So I was able to have a chat with him about that. I was probably more starstruck by the producer, having worked with all these other people, than George. But I mean, I was still, yeah, it was still a great buzz to it was a very busy schedule. So he wasn't actually in our studio very much because we recorded it at Air Studio, and he was recording his vocals upstairs, and we were recording all the orchestral stuff downstairs. Um uh so yeah, we didn't get to see him much, but he came in at the end and said how grateful he was, and everything. So yeah, that was great.
Marlena Shaw.
Marlena Shaw, wow. So yeah, I started work with her, must be 12 years ago, something like that. I was very sad to hear last year that she died. Um, but again, she had worked with all my heroes. She used to sing with Count Basie and all the jazz heroes back in the day. And then she sort of had more of a soul pop career. And it was I always find it interesting playing with singers as a sax player, because I get annoyed when sax players in particular, but any instrumentalist doesn't don't know when to stop soloing when they're playing behind a singer. And so I'm always a bit the opposite. So I never want to get in the way. And and so it took me a while but she actually wanted more interaction. And it was only the last tour that I did with her that I think that we really clicked. And so yeah, it was always an absolute treat to work with her. I couldn't ever work out what she was talking about when we were having a conversation. It was a bit of a stream of consciousness. And I do remember one long train journey when I just joined the band, and the rest of the band had been doing it for a long time, and they all immediately got in their seats on the train and closed their eyes and put their headphones on. leaving me to chat to Marlena for 6 hours. And I I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what we talked about, but I did a lot of smiling and nodding. But a
I think that's just
legendary
the best.
artist.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's just the best way to make conversations in it. Just smile and nod and go, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she was coming out with amazing stories, but the thread, I know she probably had a thread in her head, but yes, it was yeah, all these stories kind of pulled together. So it was amazing. But I did feel like the guys had dropped me in it there.
Radiohead.
Radiohead, well, they completely changed my idea of music. I was touring with Kula Shaker in the 90s and we played Glastonbury. And at that point I was focused very much on just on jazz, really. I'd grown up listening to rock music and all sorts of music, really. But I was really focusing on jazz at that stage. Um, but yes, I was playing these shows with Kulisek, and we were playing at Glastonbury in 1997, and we actually did two shows because we filled in for Neil Young who couldn't make it at the last minute, and but loads of people were coming up to me and saying, "Oh, Ben, I'd love to come and see your show, but Radiohead are on the main stage. We were on the other stage at exactly the same time." And I
Oh,
didn't really know their music at that stage. I'd heard the name. So I thought I better check out this band. So I bought OK Computer and my musical life completely changed overnight. I just thought this is incredible. And so then to actually get to work with them that was a huge highlight for me.
mm.
I got a phone call from Noel Langley, the trumpet player, who booked me for that, and he said, "Oh Ben, I've got a recording session for you for a band called Radiohead," and I absolutely lost it. But the thing was, I was supposed to be going on holiday the day of the recording session, and my sort of saying in life is if you want to get offered the best work, book a holiday, because then inevitably that's the week that they people choose. And so yes, but my wife is also a huge Radiohead fan, and she said, "Oh, you have to do that." So I managed to get a flight for later on that day, and yeah, it was an absolute dream. And it was the live from the basement at Maida Vale for the King of Limbs record.
Paloma Faith.
Well, so yes, Paloma. I've known Paloma for a long time. I remember seeing her do a duo show or a few numbers with Ed Harcourt, who I've known even longer, and I thought she was incredible. And I got asked to play on her first record, and so yeah, I jumped at the chance of doing that. But then it ended up doing some touring with her with Guy Barker's orchestra.
Mm.
So yeah, she's great, and so much fun to go on tour with. Just very funny. We got on very well.
There's so many names I can name off, but these are the ones that you've worked with personally. And just sticking on to jazz for a moment, you've performed a lot of jazz performances, obviously over the years. Is there a specific moment for you, specific place, specific time, or whatever that sticks out in your mind that you were really either proud, happy, or joyous that you did that performance? Like, oh, I really that holds close to your heart in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, there are. I mean, I'm very fortunate that there have been lots of those moments. For me, the one of the biggest goals was to play at Ronnie Scott's in London. My dad took me there to see Buddy Rich, and when I think I
Yeah.
was 12 or 13, and he took me there, and it was a real turning point for me where I just thought that's what I want to do. I absolutely love this. But Buddy Rich was playing these amazing drum solos, but there was also a sax player called Steve Marcus who was incredible, and took these long solos. And I remember thinking that night, that's what I want to do. And so getting to play Ronnie Scott's for the first time was a huge moment, especially the first time I played it with my own band. So I played there with the National Youth Jazz Orchestra when I was younger, and then a few years later played it with other bands, and then eventually got to play it with my own band. And back in those days, you'd play a whole week opposite the band, and it would be the support act, the main act, support act, main act. So I'd be supporting my absolute heroes, and you get to hang out with them a little bit because sometimes if there's a support act and a main act, the main act just turn up in time for their show and don't hear the support. But yeah, so it was a week of getting to play music alongside my absolute heroes. So yeah, I think playing that, and the Albert Hall, it's still there's an absolute magic about it. The view from the stage is phenomenal. So anytime I play there, it is a bit of a pinch me moment. And I've played there many times now, but it never gets old.
Mm. With that in mind, you've played a lot of instruments.
Mm.
Is there a specific one that to you is still a challenge to this day? I mean, I know anyone could like pick up a guitar. You know, if you used to playing a guitar, playing the saxophone and everything, well, it's second
Mm.
nature. You do it. But has there been a moment where it was a challenge for you to play a specific instrument where you've gone, God, that took it out of me, or that was an effort?
Yeah, yeah, every day. Well, the thing is with music is you never get there. So and if anyone thinks they're there, they're deluded, because there's always the I think the more you scratch beneath the surface of music, the more you realize what's out there. So you can get good at an instrument, but you can always be better, and you can learn more about music. Yes, there's so much, and it's almost a frustration to me that there's only one of me with a certain amount of time to actually work on it, because
Mm.
it's my absolute passion, my hobby, and luckily my career. So but I do. So I play the saxophone and the clarinet. Those are my sort of main ones, and I'm self-taught on the flute, and I do actually do a lot of recording on the flute for people, and play live sometimes. Um, but it's not what comes naturally. So sometimes, quite often, composers forget that wind instrumentalists need to breathe, so they'll send me the backing track that they've composed on a computer, and they'll play me the flute part, and quite often yeah, you forget that when you're blowing out, you also then need to breathe in before
Yeah.
playing another note. So yeah, sometimes yeah, it's doing the recordings on the flute, and actually recently I've been doing some recording on the recorder. And I mean, I learned that as a kid at school, but just playing a Christmas carol or something. And so that's been quite a challenge to play that. Luckily, it's been recorded. I do a lot of recording in my own studio for people. So so I do online recordings for a lot of TV shows and albums, and so yeah, luckily I can make as many mistakes as I like, and there's nobody here to witness it.
Oh, that's brilliant, isn't it? I
Oh
mean,
yes.
because I do a lot of playwriting, and if I make a mistake, I could just go right, delete, yeah,
Yes,
do it
that's
again.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, there's nobody there, arms folded, judging you.
Yeah. If there was, I mean, my nan would say it better. Just give him the V sign, Reese, and tell him to sort off to do your own thing. I was like, yeah, okay, nan, okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's good advice from a nan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I could tell you loads of stories about her, but I think that's a podcast in itself.
brilliant. I look
Yeah,
forward to that.
yeah, and but obviously I got to tell. I want to know stories about your dad, and you
Sure.
performed your father, and I discovered your father on. I think you're gonna know where this is going, right?
Oh yeah.
Parkinson,
Ah.
Buddy Rich, your father, Kenny Everett, and then Sammy Davis Jr. comes out. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I was just in a trance. I was
Mm.
like, what am I watching? Where has this been all my life? Because
Right. Yeah.
it was just the fact that your dad, and the one thing I just loved your dad in it because it was such a natural. He was like, "Oh, here we go, yes, here we go. It's such a
Mm.
natural thing for someone to be so excited. It's like, yeah, we're gonna do this." And
Yeah.
then he starts singing and then tap dancing, and then Buddy Rich is joining and Sammy Davis, and I'm thinking, this is television gold.
Yeah.
And of all the things, Michael Parkinson who's interviewed like Muhammad Ali and Peter Ustinov and all the big names, I still feel like that's one of the top moments in Parkinson because the way it just came out.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know from your perspective, obviously as his son, was that, do you get many people telling you about that moment, or when you look back at that moment, do you just sit there and go, that's my dad?
Well, it is. It's amazing. Recently, it resurfaced on Twitter, and my dad was trending on Twitter, which he would have found hilarious. He wouldn't know, obviously,
Yeah.
what that meant. But yeah, it was kind of mad, and then lots of lovely messages from people, with stories about him. But I remember when he recorded that, and my sister was lucky enough to go along, and I remember I think that was about 1981 or something like. I might be out by a year or two, but I would have only been 7 or 8, something like
Mm,
that. And at the time, I was way more impressed that he was on the same stage as Buddy Rich. But
mm,
but uh, but yeah, looking back on it, it's an amazing bit. So Dad was basically told to stall for time because it was in the days when it was recorded live, and so they knew that Sammy Davis was coming to surprise Buddy, and they said to Dad, "Could you distract Buddy whilst Sammy arrives?" Because he was running late. So he was calling them saying, "Sorry, I'm running late." And it was before mobile phones or anything like that. So Dad had this idea just kind of instinctively for Buddy to play the drums on his hands with a bit of spare change in there. And it sort of launched into this bit of a routine, and with tap dancing and singing and drumming, and everyone seemed to be really involved. And then obviously the iconic moment when Sammy Davis coolly walks down the stairs, and Buddy notices him, and then they do a routine, all three of them. So yeah, it was brilliant to see it resurface recently.
mm. Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF62 7EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.veiljewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@veiljewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. Right, at this moment on in the podcast, the computer decided to shut down, and then I had to go and use my phone to record the podcast. So I've gone from using my Q9 microphone to now using headset, and it's going to sound different, but I hope you still enjoy it. But without further ado, let's go back to the podcast. And we all know that your dad's a great entertainer, and he's done broken loads of records. He's never afraid just to jump in and take a chance. But there's a lovely moment of you, him, and Bruce Forsyth performing on stage, all three together. And I just wanted to ask you, what was it like to perform with Bruce Forsyth and obviously perform with your dad, which you've probably done many, many times?
Yes, well, I had done a lot with Dad, even from about the age of 9. He got me on stage playing with him, and we'd work out a bit of a kind of comedy musical routine, and that was great for me experience wise, and also to get over nerves. I remember I'd be so nervous because I'd be going out on stage in front of thousands of people and playing the clarinet. But yeah, the Bruce Forsyth thing, it was when Dad was ill, I got a phone call from Bruce asking me if I'd be interested on going on his show, his guest night show. And of course, I think I was 17, something like that. And I was obsessed with playing the saxophone, and Bruce was actually a really good jazz piano player. So and so he said, I'd like you to be on the show, and if your dad's well enough, he can come and join us, but we'll work out the routine so that we've got a version where it's just the two of us, and a version where your dad joins us if he's well enough on the day, because it was when Dad was going through his chemotherapy and everything. And as it turned out, Dad was well enough, so he joined us. So it was, yeah, it was a huge thing to do, and it was it's lovely of Bruce to think of me and to think of us. He and Dad went back a long way. They'd done routines together for a long time. But I tell you what, the most nerve-wracking part of that was, so I wasn't particularly nervous about playing on the television or in front of the audience there or with Bruce or anything like that. It was the musicians in his house band that I was nervous about, because they were all my absolute heroes.
Mm.
So if you think, I was a 17-year-old kid who was obsessed with music, and all these guys were fantastic jazz musicians. They're all very good friends of mine now from the music scene and the session scene. But it was Mark Nightingale on the trombone, and I remember, I think, Jamie Talbot and Dave Bishop on saxes. And yeah, again, people that I've worked with for years now, but at the time they were my heroes. So I was more nervous about making a good impression in front of them than whoever might have been watching at home.
Is there any particular, because I'm going to ask you one question about you and your father outside of the show business? Any special memories that you hold dearly to your father? Was there like a time where your dad, um, when he wasn't working, you and him just spent time together, went to, like, is there any specific memory that holds close to your heart?
Well, I mean, it was to do with his work. I'd quite often go with him to to things, and in fact, I'd quite often go to when he was recording TV shows, particularly if there was somebody he was working with that I was interested. But every time I seem to forget how actually boring it was being in the studio, just kind of waiting and watching. And but I what I used to love was I'd go to shows, or I'd do shows with him, but the car journeys with him were brilliant. And I just remember reading him crossword clues. He used to love the cryptic crosswords, and I have just such a fond memory of reading him crossword clues, and I didn't have a clue how he got any of the answers, because they were cryptic, and but he was very good at them, and so he'd talk me through his process. And but yeah, so that's and then on the way home, I'd inevitably fall asleep. I'd try and stay awake, and I'd fall asleep. But yeah, I for some reason that's a very strong, happy memory for me.
Mm.
It's
When you
such a
were,
small thing, but
oh yeah,
yeah,
but it is the smallest thing though, isn't it? That
yeah,
makes it all worth
yeah,
it, you know. And
yeah.
was there any moments where you had quote unquote famous people come to your house and you've gone, bloody hell, so and so's just turned up, and obviously they've gone to come to visit your dad or whoever. But did you ever have that growing up?
Yeah, it happened. It happened quite a lot. I do remember the first time, because he was very good friends with Eric Morecambe, and Eric actually introduced my parents together. So they both worked with him. And my mum had said, if you're ever working with Roy, could you introduce me? And so there was one time they were doing something on my dad's TV show, and in the interval, Eric brought mum into dad's dressing room and said, Roy, this is Fiona, and she's in love with you, and left. Just left them there. But yeah, so he was a very good family friend. So we'd often go round to their house, or we'd go out, and I remember the first time thinking, hang on a minute, that's the guy from that TV show that I really love, and thinking, wow, that's amazing. And it sort of didn't strike me that my dad was on telly. That was just normal, because
Mm.
that's what I knew. But then these other people, but yeah, I remember one time, is it Paul Shane from Heidi High? Just came round to our house, and I didn't know he was coming. And I remember Richard O'Sullivan, people who were sort of big names back in those days, and and thinking, wow, that's amazing. But one I wouldn't have known him at the time, but Mel Torme, amazing singer. I actually had a message from his daughter recently, who showed me a photo of us all swimming in a pool together, and I'd worked with his son James Torme, and he didn't even know that we'd met previously. But yeah, so I probably didn't appreciate some of the legends that I did manage to meet. But yeah, I remember that, yeah, the two Ronnies as well, meeting them and being completely awestruck.
Giants, the
Yeah,
giants of
absolutely.
television.
Yeah,
Um, there was a documentary I was just watching before coming on, before we started doing this, and
yeah.
obviously it was about your father. But one person in particular that was on there, I think that's because he's just a Welshman, a fellow Welshman. It was Harry Seacombe on
Oh,
there,
yes.
and I
Yes.
was like, Harry bloody Seacombe there.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So is it?
he was
No,
a he was a huge, yeah, they were such good mates. And he was actually the best man at the wedding. And yeah, they did a lot together. I remember being in dressing rooms with Dad, and Harry would be in there. And at that time, because I grew up after the Goons, so I didn't really know the Goons, and so I only really knew him as the Highway presenter, which was a sort of alternate songs of praise kind
mm,
of thing. where he'd sing serious songs, and it was a bit more of a serious thing. And to see him being completely bonkers and saying silly things, it was amazing. And he was so good with me as well, good with kids. He's just making everyone laugh. So yes, there was a yeah, they got to do a lot together. They were in Pickwick together on Broadway, and then years later they did it again, and Harry played the same part, but Dad played the father of the part that he had played previously. And it was just it was after he'd been ill the first time, so it was kind of the last kind of proper thing that they did together. But he absolutely loved it. He always loved working with Harry.
Going out, so when your father, obviously, when your father passed away and jumping out, you're doing your own stuff, you're doing a lot of performances in jazz and other performances with other big name celebrities, musicians, etc. Did you ever have people come up to you and they go, "Oh, but Ben Castle, you know, Roy's son," or you go, "Oh, yeah, Roy's." Did you ever get that a lot? And do you still do?
I did. Well, it's funny because this year is actually 30 years since he died. So which is mad really, but so there's only a certain age group that would remember him at all. So yeah, I mean, I still get I was buying a plant recently in a shop. You know, these days you now have to sort of sign up to something before you can buy it. And so they asked my name. And this, I live in Ireland, and he wasn't that not everyone had the BBC here. It was only people on the East Coast that would get it, because they could sort of get the satellite signal from Belfast or from Liverpool or somewhere. And so and so I'm quite used to people here not knowing who Dad was. But yeah, so I gave my name, and he said, jokingly, he said, "Oh, not related to Roy, are you?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am actually." And quite often when people say that, I usually just laugh and say, "Oh, no, no." But but on this occasion, I did say, "Oh, yeah, actually, yeah." Um, and well, it's funny because my wife is from the west coast of Ireland, and she didn't have the BBC growing up, so she didn't have a clue who Dad was. And she said it almost freaked her out, because a couple of times she'd say to somebody, "Yeah, I think apparently, yeah, my boyfriend's dad was quite well known in the UK, Roy Castle." And some people were, "What?" Um, because I suppose to put it in context, in those days when you were on the telly, everybody saw you because there were only three channels.
And millions of people are watching it. You know, it's not like
Yeah,
today where there's streaming, there's YouTube, etc. It's just
yeah,
you got this box, there's
yeah,
four channels, do what you want.
yeah. That's it. And also it wasn't 24 hours a day, you know. So people would come back from school and put record breakers on, or Blue Peter, or whatever it was. And so, yes, I think people forget that in those days, that's why people were such household names. These days, you watch a celebrity show, and some people might know who some of the celebrities are, but a lot of people won't, because they don't watch the particular program or channel or streaming service or whatever. But yes, all right, it still amazes me that that people remember him and have stories. But no, so a few times I even got people say, when I'm holding my saxophone, people say, "I'm sorry, but can you, I just got to ask you, are you related to Roy Castle?" Because they saw the resemblance, so without even knowing my surname. But the funniest thing that happened to me in regards to this, and I was on an aeroplane, and it was one of these times where it was grounded because of the snow. and but we were actually on the plane, and we'd been waiting there for ages. And I got chatting to the woman who was sitting the sort of on the same row as me, and she was talking about all the time that she'd been held up in airports or on planes. And she said, and there was one time I was held up in Cairo airport because of that bloody Roy Castle. And what? I didn't know what was going on. My heart started racing. It's like this is such a strange moment. She said he was doing the wing walk for his TV show for Record Breakers. The wing walk was when you stand on a plane, and it was the longest wing walk. So it was going over the English Channel, but apparently they'd gone into the wrong airspace. So it held up all these airplanes, and so this poor woman had been held up in the Cairo airport all this time. And she said, I'd never loathed a man as much as I did him that day. And it was so out of the blue that he just came up in conversation like that. And I was thinking, should I tell her or shouldn't I?
I could
And
just see it. I could just see it now. Just you go, yeah, he's my dad, and she's going, oh no, I didn't mean it.
yeah, I thought, oh, she'd really squirm if I said. But what I did when I went to the loo a little bit later, for some reason they'd put my name in massive letters on my ticket, and so what I did was I left it by my book and the music I was listening to on the. People quite often like to have a little nose what somebody's reading, and I like to think that she saw my surname and went back and Googled me, and she's telling the other part of this anecdote somewhere else right now.
You've done I'm right in saying that you did the introduction to Wogan for his show. Am I right in saying so?
Yes, I wrote the music with my friends at Sitting Duck Productions it was a program called Wogan Now and Then, where he interviewed people that he had interviewed previously on his Wogan show. So yeah, basically revisiting old old interviews. So yeah, that was great fun.
Yeah. Did you ever get to meet him as well, or?
Well, I met him not through that show, but I'd met him when I was younger. Always a fan. He was always we'd always listen to Radio 2 in the morning on the way to school. So
it's Terry Wogan's Top of the Morning to you. Yeah, that'll be it for me because I live with my grandparents. Not now, but I was brought up by my grandparents, and
Okay.
mum and dad still alive. Don't worry, it's just a weird story. But my bump is what he used to do when we would go into when he was dropping me off to school. But obviously he had to go to work as well, so I had to get up early in the morning. So he would drop me to my parents' house, and then I would walk to the school. But he would have BBC Radio 2 on, and then it's Big Terry, Top of the Morning to you. And it was just that was the thing, though. That's the thing I remember, and there'll be loads of times when me and my bamp and my nan, we watch old classics of the TV's golden age of the two Ronnies and
brilliant.
Morecambe and Wise, and I'm somewhat grateful as well, because I'm glad that I was brought by grandparents, because they introduced me to proper, proper the golden age of television, where BBC was on top of the world with tremendous acts and everything.
Yeah.
And obviously your dad was part of that furniture in some ways. He was part of the room where just absolutely captivated the audience. And when it comes to the legacy, like I said, it is one of those things with children who have famous parents, and they go, dad is dad, mum is mum. I would say correctly that was for you. Yeah, Roy Castle. Yeah, he was my dad. Dad is dad.
Yeah, well, people used to ask me what it was like growing up with a famous father. but I actually I didn't know what it was like to not. So that it was just the normality of the situation. And so yeah, it was strange going out and people sort of coming up to him and making a fuss. Um, but he was very unassuming. Anyway, I mean, he didn't sort of crave the publicity or the adulation or anything, but he was always very good with people when they did come up. And in those days, it was obviously before selfies, but it was autographs. So he'd always wait around and give everybody an autograph that
Mm.
that wanted one.
Yeah.
But
I
yes,
always
it
do
was.
that.
What's that?
I always do that.
Yeah, yeah,
Autographs
me
and
too.
then
Yeah,
pictures. Yeah,
if anyone wants one, yeah.
yeah. I
I've actually
mean,
forgotten how to write these days.
well, it's I mean, every time I meet famous people or anything, I always ask for the autograph more, and it's
Oh yes.
yeah. But I mean, I'm not there yet when it comes to signing autographs myself.
Uh,
So I always feel like I'm signing the contract. This is my autograph.
oh yeah, yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Um, it's brilliant because again, just going back to I mentioned my grandfather a lot on this podcast all
Mm.
the time, but I'm not afraid to say it. But he always advised me, um, it doesn't matter about the picture, right? It's you that makes the difference. And I was like, oh, what do you mean by that? And he went, well, you're the one who's met it. That's it up here.
Ah, yeah,
You know what's happened. If people don't
yeah,
believe you, well, they're not going to believe you.
yeah.
But you know true and well that you met that so and you met that so and. But
Ah,
even
yeah.
today, right? Even if I didn't take a selfie, I went, oh yeah, I met so and so down the road. No, in my love, people will go, oh, Reece, who have you met this time? Stop stalking him.
Oh,
And I'm
really?
like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. I just been fortunate to have done that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
So,
can't win.
oh yeah, you can't win, no, but at the same time, it's like I do the podcast, so people when they listen to it or they watch it or whatever, they know who I'm interviewing,
Mm.
and it's surprising that again going back to my grandfather, he would say to me, "I'm surprised you know Roy Castle because he wasn't part of your day," and
Mm.
I went, yeah, but neither was Only Fools and Horses because I grew up watching Only Fools and Horses. Like neither
Yeah.
was that in some ways.
Mm.
Neither was the two Ronnies or Morecambe and Wise or Roy Castle or
Mm.
all these big names. But that's what happens when you're that damn good and you stand the test of time.
Yeah. And now things resurface on YouTube and old clips and everything. Yeah, in the old days, unless you'd videoed it, you couldn't really watch things back. But now
Mm,
it's a lot easier to kind of take a deep dive in old classics.
yeah, yeah. I mean, unless you're Doctor Who and you just get rid of most of your episodes from the first two Doctors, whatever,
Oh, did
and
they
they
do
get
that?
well. There's a story of William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton's tenures as the Doctors. They Most of their episodes got lost, and
Mm.
that's because the BBC didn't really value. It's not just Doctor Who. There was a lot of other programs
Oh
they did
yes,
as
no,
well.
that I think that happened a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, where they didn't really value the content of the product that they had,
Mm.
and it was only until I think when John Pertwee was the Doctor, and they knew how big it was, and then Tom Biggett, they realized, oh, we better keep a hold of these footages and everything.
Yeah.
But they've just it's because I've heard stories that there were some lost episodes found in Nigeria.
Oh really?
Uh, I was like, freaking hell, they're doing in Nigeria.
Wow, that's mad.
There was like, and it's still lost forever, but I'm certain that they'll be found somewhere. And the only reason I mentioned Doctor Who is because I noticed that poster in the background. It was like
Oh
Doctor Who and the
yes,
Daleks. So I got a
yes.
Peter Cushing autograph that was given to me.
Oh brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, it was my friend Mark Jones, and he's
Mm.
worked in the BBC and a few other things. He's worked with John Pitts, but he had a
Yeah.
friend who collected autographs, and one of them was a Peter Cushing autograph that I knew straight away. So
Mm.
I always see that old fashioned autographs. They're just
Yeah.
proper, write your proper name and everything. I
Yeah.
was like, how'd you get that? And
Mm.
I said, I'll buy it off you one day. I'll give you £200 for it because I knew the value of it. But then one Christmas, I think that this one just gone. My friend Mark and his wife get me. It was like a card and it was wrapped. And he said, "Be careful when you open it." And I was like, "Okay." So I started opening it, and in this little plastic folder was this Peter Cushing autograph that he took
Oh,
out of the book.
wow. Oh,
And I was like, "Oh
amazing.
my God." And I was like, "What is
That's
going on here?"
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got
Fantastic.
it framed, and it's proudly
Oh, that's
um,
brilliant.
going to be hung in my office one day. So
Fantastic.
now, last question, because I know you are short for time as well, and I really appreciate you finding the time. I'm so gutted that that happened. I love spontaneous moments,
Yeah.
but for my computer just to go bump like that,
Yeah.
I just thought, what's going on?
Yeah. Oh, it happens. It always at the worst time.
Yeah, and it's like the worst time, but the best times is like asking about your story about your dad. I'm like, I want
Yeah.
to know this, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, oh God, no.
Frozen.
Yeah.
Frozen.
But for you, Ben, I always ask this question to my guest, the very last question, and it's, how do you look back on your career?
Whoa, it's a deep one. Um, because when you sort of add everything up, I think I've been so fortunate to have worked with so many brilliant people and to have had a good time and to have had so much experience. And then I think of all the things, the sort of the good things, the good points and the bad things, things that I would have done differently. And I'm terrible at releasing my own records. So I record them and then I kind of can't think what to do with them, and or I get so busy touring or recording with somebody else that I it's not the top of my priority to release them. So every time I have an idea for a new album these days, my wife won't listen to it until I've released all the albums on my hard drive. So that's one thing I maybe would have been better at actually releasing records. Maybe I should have carved out a bit more time for my own stuff. But I have no regrets, and there's hopefully a lot, many more years of making music of my own and with other people. And I just I love it all. It's there's always something you can learn from a situation. And when I was younger, I turned down a lot of opportunities with pop bands because I thought it would water down the seriousness of my music. And now I realize, and then I got to work with lots of pop bands, and there's lots of interesting challenges with that. If you're playing with the horn section, just making it sound as good as it possibly can. And yeah, I've yeah, I had such a good time so far, and I intend to continue doing that really.
Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalised keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewellery, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF62 7EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You can even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Veil Jewelry Workshops. Veil Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.veiljewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@veiljewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248.